Hello guys, this is just a little disclaimer before I get into the video. This video is not intended to be offensive, insulting or patronising to anybody. It's just a video made to raise awareness and to educate people about disability. I hope you enjoy it.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. So I'm really sorry that I haven't been around for a couple of weeks. I've been really busy trying to get everything sorted for my master's degree and getting into the postgraduate spirit, so I've not been able to come on here and do some videos. But I'm back now and I'm going to try to keep to a schedule, but I can't guarantee, but we'll see what I can do. So I am going to be doing a video today on some of my top awkward moments as a disabled person. Now if you follow my blog or my Twitter, you probably already know this, but I was featured in Scope's Hashtag End the Awkward campaign, which is a campaign about raising awareness of disability and awkwardness that surrounds disability to the general public in the UK. And it's all about showing people that even if you're disabled or even if you meet someone who's disabled, you don't have to feel awkward around it. Disability is totally fine and you can cope with it. So I wanted to create a video today talking about some of my personal awkward moments, and at the end I'll also be tagging a few people to share their awkward moments on YouTube or their blog. So anyway, let's get into it. The first one I want to talk to you guys about was when I was on a bus. Now in the UK on buses we have these things called priority seats, and these are seats that are reserved for disabled people, people who have difficulty walking, pregnant women and elderly people. Now I was on the bus with my iPhone and I had my guide dog with me, but because I was in one of these seats you couldn't actually see my guide dog that was by my feet. And this elderly gentleman came on and he must have got the wrong end of the stick, and he said to me, "Can you move please? You're not disabled, you don't need to be there." And I do. Now usually I would say to somebody, actually I am disabled and I've just got as much entitlement to be here as you do. But because my stop was coming up next, I was like, literally I'm not getting into an argument, I'm getting off this stop and I just want to be done with this because I feel embarrassed enough as it is, so I'm just going to get up. And also I thought it would be a lot more funny to see his reaction when I appeared with my guide dog. So I got up, "Come on Inti, let's get off, come on." And my guide dog comes into view and then he says, "Oh, you're blind. Oh, I'm really sorry. No, sit back down, I'm sorry." And he was getting really flustered and everyone was looking around like, "What the hell were you doing?" And I said, look, don't worry about it, I'm getting off now anyway, there's no point. But in future I wouldn't make judgments when you see someone, because I actually do have a sight impairment and you've really embarrassed me. I think that was one of the top moments, and the thing that was the clincher of it is that he said, "You don't look blind," or "You didn't look blind." It actually did happen another time when I was going out with my guide dog and we were going on a tube, and there was these barriers you have to go through to get to the tube. You have to swipe your card, or you can go through these disabled ones which are bigger and they don't shut immediately, they give you time to get through if you've got a wheelchair or a guide dog. I went over to them, said to this guy who was manning them, "Can you let me through please, because I need to get through them?" And he said, "But you're not disabled." And I said, "Well I am, I've got a guide dog here and I can't get through those ones that are so temperamental." And he looked down, went really red, and he said to me, "Oh, I'm sorry, you don't look blind." I just said, "Well, can you let me through please? That would be really much appreciated." He let me through and that was it. I just felt too awkward to say anything because I just got my guide dog. I was very new to this whole experience and it wasn't something I was very comfortable with, so I just kept my mouth shut and just went about my business. Now before I had my guide dog I used a cane, and using a cane was more problematic for me personally because there were times when people couldn't see my cane and they made assumptions about me. And one of them was when I was at a flower show with my mum and my nan, and I had my cane, I decorated it, I made it look all jazzy and fashionable the best as I could because it made me feel more comfortable using a cane. And I was using my cane and I was walking through this crowd of people and I was just, doing the movements just left to right, slowly so I could get through and feel people who were in the way and through obstacles. And by accident I hit this woman's legs. I didn't mean to, I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." But she had really got angry about it and she turned around and said to me that I was an idiot, that I was stupid, what was I doing here, people like me shouldn't be there. She was using a lot of swear words, she was being quite verbally aggressive to me, and she just really made me feel uncomfortable, and it was in quite a crowded place, and she really was very detrimental to my disability and to what it was to be visually impaired. Another awkward moment I remembered was when I was in a supermarket and I was just going around getting a few bits and pieces, and a lady comes up to me, and the first thing I want to say before I get into this, I am not in any way, shape or form against anyone practicing their religion or having a religion or believing in a religion, but I do have a problem when they try to say that religion affects your disability. This person came up to me and said, if you believe in God, you will get your sight back. We're all made to be a certain way, and why should we feel the need to say that someone else who is born differently, because maybe they don't practice religion, that they should be blamed for it because it's their fault because they're not a believer? That's like people when they say, have you tried green tea? I hear that's great for things like eczema, maybe it will get your sight back. Or have you tried cutting out this from your diet because I hear it's good for eye health? Or have you tried eating more so-and-so because it helps with your retina or something like that? And it's like, diet and lifestyle doesn't have anything to do with my disability. Disability is something that you are born with or you contract, and it's not affected by your diet or your lifestyle usually. Another one I remember having was when I went on a speed date night with my friends. Now, speed dates can be awkward enough as they are, regardless of the fact if you've got a disability or not. And this one was just made even more awkward because it was a blindfolded speed date, and I was talking to this person and he said about the fact it was like being blind because it was something to raise like funds and awareness of blindness, which is why I went. And he said, you know, it's like if someone was blind, this is what it would be like. And I said, well, actually, I'm visually impaired, I've got limited vision, blah blah blah. And he said, oh, there was a huge pause in between, and then he said, well, how would you expect me to react to that? And I said, well, just to carry on with the conversation, really. I said, well, you've kind of killed the conversation now. And I just thought to myself, but I've not said that I'm a green alien from Mars. I've not said that I murdered someone and I've got their body in my backyard. All I've said is that I've got a visual impairment, I'm disabled. It's not a scary topic, it's everyday life. And you don't have to change the way you talk or completely stop talking to a person just because I say I've got a disability or I've got an illness. Carrying on with this whole theme of dating and the whole dating scene, I remember once when I was out at a pub with a few of my friends from uni, and there was this guy who came up to me and he saw that I had a guide dog, and he said to me, are you training that guide dog? And I said to him, oh no, she's my guide dog. He said, really? I said, oh yeah. And he said, he turned to his friend, he nudged him in the ribs and said, ooh, she's blind, I've got a chance to get with her. Another awkward moment I remember was when I was in a sauna at my gym, and I was talking to this guy who was just saying about his job and, you know, oh, how often do you come here, and, you know, what sort of things do you do at the gym, just general chit chat you'd have in the sauna, I gather. And I don't know how it came onto it, but we got onto the subject of travelling, and he said about travelling being so expensive, and I said, well, I don't really have to pay for it because I've got a freedom pass. He said, well, how do you get that? I said, well, I've got a disability, I'm visually impaired. He said, you don't look disabled, you look like you're able to come in the sauna completely independently. I said, well, yeah, I'm visually impaired, I've got a bit of sight left and I know the layout of the gym quite well, and it's something that I feel comfortable with now. And he said, oh, you can't be that visually impaired though, because if you had my visual impairment, I'd feel sorry for you. I said, you just got onto the subject of talking about your transport, and I said, well, I get a freedom pass. He said, but you don't look visually impaired. And I said, well, I am visually impaired and I've got a guide dog. She's in the office if you don't believe me. He said, you've got a guide dog? You've got a guide dog? I said, yes, I have. He said, you really don't look like you need one. And at that point, I threw my hands up and said, well, look, nice talking to you. I've had about 20 minutes in the sauna now, I'm going to get out. And I just got out, grabbed my towel and went back into the changing room. And I have never felt so awkward or patronised or under inquisition as I did in the sauna. It was like someone was asking me about my disability and like trying to say that I was lying about that I had a visual impairment and disability. One other thing I wanted to address about awkward moments is that even though I use a guide dog or sometimes a cane, when I don't use them, my disability does become invisible. So when I am with my parents and they go into a disabled parking bay, or perhaps I buy tickets under concession as a disabled person with a carer and I don't have my guide dog, or when I go into a disabled toilet, for example, and I've not got my guide dog or a cane with me, people often whisper, what's she doing? She's not disabled. I think there's a lot of awkwardness, especially around disabled people, if they don't have a disability that looks visible immediately, like a wheelchair or even having a guide dog like I do. And there are lots of awkward moments that can happen around that, and it's just such a shame that people honestly don't have the be able to think outside the box and to understand that disability isn't black and white, and it isn't as it ought for you to think it is. Disability doesn't have to be awkward. You don't have to feel awkward in social situations. You don't have to feel like you can't talk to them, or you can't engage in conversation with them, or you just can't act yourself around them, because you can. Now the next video I'm actually going to be doing is talking about how not to be awkward around disability. So there are going to be some things that I'm going to give you advice on, some tips and tricks on how you can just be yourself around disability and how you can understand disability a bit further. But I would also like to tag a few people to do their own awkward moments around disability on YouTube and blogs. So on YouTube I tag the girls from Blind Not Bored, I tag Jack Binstead, I tag Grace Mandeville from the Mandeville Sisters. I'm also going to tag Molly Burke, Charlotte Eads, and on blogs I'm going to be tagging Kimberley from the blog Gleamed, I'm going to be tagging Secrets of Beauty, and I'm going to be tagging Ellen from the blog See My Way. Comment down below with any of your own awkward disabled moments, but just remember, this is not supposed to be an insult to anyone who's done anything like this. It's not supposed to be patronising. I'm just trying to raise awareness of disability and educate everybody, and just make everyone feel a bit more comfortable around disability, and that they can actually understand it and not feel like they have to act a different way. So thank you all very much for watching this video today, guys. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I will catch you guys in my next one. Bye bye.